Welcome to the Center of Light Radio with spiritual teacher, intuitive, musician, composer, and best-selling author of The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard.
Coast to coast, pole to pole, all around the world on the internet. Strap in all ye Broham and Sistar astronauts as we launch for inner space. This is Keith Anthony Blanchard, and you're listening to Center of Light Radio, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement, the superhighway to knowledge for that which is most important, and that would be you. My brand new program I have released to the public recently, RPM, Recognize, Plug In, and Manifest Your Life. You can go to centeroflightradio.com. Go to the bottom right-hand side of the opening page and you will see a subscription form. Fill it out. I will send you not only my monthly newsletter, which I promised you I will not send you junk. I put a lot of time and effort in doing research to find that which is really, really cool and expands my heart so that I know in turn it will expand you as well. But also filling out this form, you will have access to my RPM life-changing program. This is my lifelong work. Heads up, in August, word got to me that Swamiji Viswayogi, God Realized Man, is going to be in Memphis, back in town. Yes, hopefully, and I'm pretty confident, and I pray that Swamiji is going to grant me another interview. And I think his theme this year is healing the earth by purifying the waters. Looking forward to spending time with Swamiji yet again. While you're on that same page, look to the left of that subscription box and you will see a movie banner. The movie is called And the Meek Shall Inherit the Earth, The Prophecy Realized. Very fine movie, if I may say so myself. Took me about a month and a half to make this documentary movie, informative movie, about how we can see what's happening in the world through a positive perception, through a clearer lens, if you will. Check it out. It's doing very, very well. But I'm very proud of this work because my gig is about unity. My gig for the rest of my life is about the bringing together of people as my contribution to this world in this lifetime. To call into the show, dial 888-919-2355. Remember, if you're not at home or by your computer and you want to hear your favorite show, you can go to the App Store on your phone and download the Inception Radio Network app for free. Everything is easy accessible. Chat room, listen, live link, news, podcasts, and much, much more. There are many ways to connect to Center of Light, that's for sure. And now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. Today on my show, we're going to be speaking about matrix energetics. My guest, Dr. Richard Bartlett, holds a doctorate in chiropractic from Parker Chiropractic College and a degree in naturopathic medicine from Bastyr University. Dr. Bartlett is the developer of matrix energetics, master energy dynamics, and Holo-Synchronous energetic technology systems. These paradigms utilize the principles and sciences of subtle energy and quantum physics, coupled with incredible power of active imagination and focused intent to produce physically verifiable effects that often defy rational explanation. Dr. Bartlett has been teaching these systems at seminars around the world to thousands of participants since 2003. He has helped thousands of people transform themselves through his practice and national seminars. Dr. Bartlett is the author of the award-winning Matrix Energetics, The Science and Art of Transformation, The Matrix Energetics Experience, The Physics of Miracles with Melissa Joy Johnson, and Into the Matrix with Melissa Joy Johnson. Let me tell you about my second guest, who just so happens to be Melissa Joy Johnson, or M-Joy, is best known for her ability to engage people from all over the world to embrace their true, authentic power through accessing universal consciousness by playing in the field of the heart. She has a unique perspective on how we're able to experience living joyfully and loving completely from a state of grace. Melissa has been teaching popular life transformational matrix energetics seminars around the globe since 2008. She is the founder and instructor of the M-Joy of Being seminar series, a unifying movement and consciousness dedicated to empowering and expanding heart-centered awareness and practical personal empowerment for everyone. For more on Richard and Melissa, visit www.matrixenergetics.com. So welcome to Center of Light Radio, Richard Bartlett and Melissa Joy Johnson.
Thank you.
I'm glad you both are here. A couple of years ago, Richard, I'm going to start with you if that's okay.
Sure.
Not a couple of years, a few years ago, I'm surfing YouTube and I come across this cool looking video with this guy wearing this awesome looking pendant around his neck. And I have a quoted line here. It says, if you are not used to sitting at a table and having it melt or having the floor turn into goo, then that's probably not going to happen for you unless you are sitting there with me. Then it's almost guaranteed. And when I got that from you off of that video, I knew you were not speaking figuratively, that you meant this literally. I could see it in your posture. I could see it in your eyes. I could see it in the words that you use. I can tell that this was very real that you were stating. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct. It's true for Melissa as well.
And so how did you come into this field, Richard, and Melissa came along after? Is that correct?
Allegedly. She might have been there all the while, and I just couldn't see her.
I'm sitting here silent. I will let silence speak.
And so after watching a few of Richard's videos over the years, we might as well prepare the listening audience. So everything you hear today is literal, but in figurative at the same time. So take a lot of things in quotes.
Trust me, anything I say.
So Richard, I mean, I'm sure you probably didn't envision yourself as a child being a time traveler, reality bender, healer, or playing in the field of quantum nonsense.
Well, actually, I probably did because, I mean, I wanted to be Superman. You know, I grew up watching George Reese's Superman, and I had such a connection with the idea of superheroes and all of that that I really did not feel, even though I was a very shy child and I was extroverted at home but very introverted at school, I felt, I'm not going to say I felt special, but I was in my own little world. Let's just put it that way.
How did this come across your table, both of you? How was this technique, idea, truth, reality presented to you, and how did you lean into it?
I leaned into it with the wind at a downward slope. It's a difficult question to answer because I think your whole life provides pointers towards where your life could go. But just like what I was saying, your expectations set, your perceptions of reality will encode what you're able to experience of reality unless you're sitting there with someone who has encoded it differently. Now, that's not to say that you're superseding their reality, but when you share a reality, that reality becomes confluent, coherent with what is more possible. And one of the things that I will say points towards something like that is the idea of watching things like Batman, Superman, The Flash, which I did. I'm totally fascinated with comics and masters, and also with Jesus. I grew up Catholic. And Jesus was another superhero. And of course, that's the way he's portrayed by the Catholic Church because he was a god, you know, not you or me, but he was you or me and is you or me. So, I mean, the idea that we have this greatness within us that has nothing to do with our ego or even our personality or our expectations, if you have that as an a priori somewhere in your subconscious, it can bubble up and then events in your life can transform your experience of reality because you are living in the matrix, and the matrix can be a trap or it can be a way out of the maze.
I've watched you, sir. I have not had the pleasure of watching much of Melissa. That leaves a lot wide open. What was this like for you both when you first had the experience, as Richard says, the floor turning into goo or the table melting? I mean, what is that feeling like? Is there a letting go? Is it easy to surrender, or do you find yourself wanting to keep equilibrium by holding on to what you know as reality?
First thing, it feels kind of like the 60s to me because I was a bass player in the 60s.
I'm a bass player now. I do it full time, actually.
So there you go. See? Well, let's just say that when I played, sometimes the floor was rainbow colors and swirling and trying to swallow me. So I have references. But I mean, the thing is, every reference we form, we carry with us. Now, some of those things are baggage and we're carrying trash against a white linen and we just need to let go of it. But some of those things are actually there set up by our full awareness, our deeper awareness, to allow for us to reach a point of transformation where there is a, if you will, a breaking point or a point of break in the wave where there is actually an interval where we can move into a whole new reality of possibilities. Melissa and I both, I can speak for myself, but I can somewhat speak for Melissa, but I much prefer her to speak because she's so articulate and lovely in every way, is that we hold this in our fields. Melissa and I do. We hold this in our fields. We realize it's a field, and we realize it's a shared field or morphic field, as Rupert Sheldrake talks about, and therefore it is available to all. And the bigger that field gets, and the more experience it has, the more aware it becomes, and the more interactive it becomes. And at some point, it becomes so aware, so available, and so interactive that literally anyone can experience just by being either in the presence of Melissa or I, which we're not that special, but we know that we have the ability to open that because we have accepted that within ourselves.
I think I'd like to just say hello to everyone and offer, particularly for our listeners who have absolutely no idea what the frick we're talking about, the idea of sitting at a table and turning into goo or melting and merging with the table. It's both metaphorical and actual. It's both virtual and actual because reality itself is both virtual and actual. And our experience of reality is based on rigid reality constructs that hold a consistent state over and over and over again. That's why things appear not to change. And what happens when we come into contact with a field such as matrix energetics that's embodied both by Richard and myself is that those rigid constructs, those templates or those grids soften and they loosen and they become more fluid-like. They become more resemblant to the essence of consciousness, which is fluid and malleable. So the melting into the table or even going unconscious or merging and becoming goo, which is a great description, but it's a description to describe what goes beyond words. We're moving into the state of the all where all becomes possible and available. We become fluid, we become wave-like, and that's where the possibilities become available. And that's why things can change in the very next moment.
And so matrix energetics is the program that helps one become aware, truly aware beyond what they know as their frame of reference, beyond the body, beyond the five senses that makes sense to them, and moves them into the field of nonsense, which is beyond the scope of what most people live their daily life, right?
Well said.
Thank you very much. I have my moments.
That was beautifully said because we often share that we don't even like to define what matrix energetics is, because any definition will place an inherent limitation on that. And so it does move us beyond our constructs that can constrict us into a space of letting go and allowing where all becomes possible and available, where we aren't really the doer, we're the doorway for what we refer to as infinite possibilities, which is simply universal consciousness as the all.
And watching Richard, again, I'm going to take some time today and do some research on you, Melissa, because I want to see you in action as well. But watching, and if you mirror Richard in what he's doing, the level of conviction you have, Richard, it's like there's no room for nothing to go awry, so to speak. I know you have a comeback on that one. But my point is, your level of intention, your level of conviction. So my question to you, Mr. Bartlett, would be, intention is everything. Does intention begin to self-reflect or manifest greater, faster, quicker, bigger, the more you dabble with subtler layers of quantum physics?
Well, it's not cellular layers of quantum physics, because quantum physics is probably not true either. I think consciousness is really what, if anything is so-called true, it would be consciousness is. And that's really all you can say about it. And that's really what Schrodinger and all these great quantum physicists had to say about it. And by the way, somebody like Einstein, for instance, not to burst anybody's bubble, but he dabbled in LSD and DMT, psilocybin, mushrooms, and he was a cocaine guy. Because we know this because on autopsy, that stuff was in his brain, which meant he had a pretty good dose of it going on there if it was still in his brain on autopsy and they could detect it. So, but you don't need all that. You do not need that. All you need is one reference of something not being what you thought it was in order for you to re-encode at a paraconscious level the sense that all things are possible. Now, if all things are possible, that doesn't necessarily mean, and here's where my statements go awry. I'll make a awry statement, as in, my life is not controllable. My life is sometimes a mess. I'm a mess. And you know what? It's not about intention creating your reality. It's about coming out of tension and allowing your reality to create you.
Wow, 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 wow. When I have to play with words and I have to be careful with you, Richard. When you, Melissa, both, Richard as well, when you guys, let's use the word shift, when you step into other realities, when you shift into other realities. Richard, I've watched you, sir, when you do in your videos, and I see people fall back as if you are a faith healer, right? An evangelist, which I know is completely the opposite. When you are working with people in this way, I've watched you not put a lot of thought into the fact that you might touch someone on their clavicle or on their scapula or wherever your hands may go, and it just so happens to be the right place. Is it because you're stepping into that field that you're being moved, or is it because in that place you become hyper psychic and you just kind of go with your promptings?
In that place, there is no right place, and in that place, there is no place. There is no place for a place within that place. There is only the space of consciousness melting, transforming, reflecting, and regenerating. It is a place that is indeed magical because all thought actually stops, in a sense, and there is no intention, there is no decision, there is no right way or wrong way. There is only, well, what the voice that teaches me, I call it God, would say at one point. I was in my practice and it said, well, I'm going to treat this person. There is no treatment. There is no healing. There is no disease. There is only God. I'm going to work on this person. There is no person. There's no you. There is no other. There is only God. And I got to the point where I'm like, well, what is true? And then I had to let go of it. But I mean, the point is this, is whatever your expectations, beliefs, and your decisions are, if you wind up in a seminar like Matrix Energetics, you've already been there in your consciousness. You just needed some signpost in the so-called physical reality in order to realize you've already arrived.
Center of Light Radio, Keith Anthony Blanchard here, your host. My guest today, Mr. Richard Bartlett and Melissa Joy Johnson of Matrix Energetics. Richard, hypnotrons.
Something I heard from Richard Bandler. He said, these, let me use his voice, these physicists, they make up this stuff, and like they have these particles and these virtual particles. Well, virtual particles, I virtually don't believe they exist, but if they can make up particles, I can make up particles. I'm a physicist. I said, here's a particle. It's the hypnotron, and these little blue lights, just follow me. I know the way.
Observe a reality.
Exactly.
It changes by our perception. It changes by our ideas of how we think we should be, how it should be.
Let Melissa answer that. She has a very expansive answer.
Please.
Well, I'd actually like to dovetail back to something that was said about 10 minutes ago, and that is with respect to Matrix Energetics and my mirroring what Richard does. Richard can mirror what I do, and what we offer to all of the students is not only the ability to map altered states of consciousness and moving out of their rigid framework for reality, but the ability to really map their own relationship to the field and their own unique skill sets. what we teach our students how to do is not to be an automaton and to engage in a technique or a modality, because matrix energetics is so much more than that. But we really teach them how to embody a flexibility of consciousness, giving them very loose strategies for navigating through any pattern or terrain of consciousness. Now, this skill set is super applicable in a state of disease, or when you're trying to quote unquote heal something, but it's much more than that. Really being able to apply a flexibility of consciousness to your everyday life is what enables you to move from ordinary to extraordinary. So everything that we teach, and I emphasize the word we because the field moves through both of us equally and very differently, is available to everyone. One of the things that I love so much about matrix energetics is that it's not about worshiping a guru or putting the teachings up on a pedestal. In fact, we're very, very humble when the teachings move through us, and we admit our foibles, and we admit that even though we know that life is so-called limitless, we're all having experiences that might not look that way. And what matrix energetics offers through the 2-point or time travel or parallel universes or archetypes or just getting absolutely crazy and silly and playing is the ability to bring levity into all situations. And when we bring levity into situations, then flexibility becomes available, and then anything becomes up for grabs for change. And so ultimately what is offered for our students through the teachings is the ability to come into a more cohesive relationship with themselves, which is the universe.
And they could find this at matrixenergetics.com.
One place, yes.
Where would you like to send our listening audience to, sir, for those who might be interested in this life-changing, altering program?
MatrixEnergetics.com is fine, and also it's i-hrt.com. You can get there either place. Will take you to the seminar schedule.
And how long is the program for? Is it a length of time, or is it, you do it at your own leisure?
It starts at the beginning and it ends in eternity.
You're right.
So the duration of the seminars vary depending upon which particular seminar that we're offering. We have a best of the best matrix energetics 3-day seminar coming up in Denver, Colorado, August 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. And what's beautiful about this upcoming seminar is that we've taken the best of the fundamentals, which is the introduction to the field of matrix energetics, the best of magic, and the best of mastery, and we've combined it into a 3-day comprehensive course where students will still get the experience of the physics and embodying the physics, but they're going to get a lot of experiential practice where they will form their own distinctions of playing with the various facets that are involved in matrix energetics. So it's really a 3-day experiential seminar where you immerse yourself in the field and you will transform even if you don't even get up and practice.
I like to tell people, we both do, I think, that really matrix energetics is not a set of techniques or even tools, because that is too linear and too limiting. The experience points to the possibility of a different perspective and window into alternate realities. And ultimately, what we think is most important about matrix energetics is the individual's experience within self and their ability to transform their relation to self as other.
Richard, when I heard you on the video talking about you had your hand over someone's heart center, and you saying, you don't want me to treat your heart condition because it only makes a smarter heart condition.
That's exactly right. And that's kind of what I was pointing to. And Melissa and I really have made this distinction. I have 2 medical degrees, but they just fight with each other. It's like claymation. They come out and they fight, and whoever wins, well, nobody really wins, because ultimately, any condition like that is conditioned, and anything you do to it in order to change it conditions it further. If you understand the idea, if you're a Trekkie like I am, the Borg, which Captain Picard faced, that he could attack them with a phaser rifle a couple of times, but then they would shift their vibration and frequency, and then they were not affected by it. Now, as a practitioner of 27 something years in practice, I've seen it over and over again. The more you treat something, the more distinctions it forms in the field of that something, and the more flexible that something becomes in not changing.
I often tell people I see on social media, Richard, Melissa, I'm sure you've seen it as well. I wear my prayer warriors. I have this condition. And I think that's some of the same thing that you might be talking about there, Richard. I often tell my friends, you might want to be careful when you tell people that you have cancer and you want them to pray for you. And they ask me why. And I tell them it's because you're getting all this conscious power behind the believable factor that you're announcing and affirming that you have such a disease. Would this be sort of the same idea?
I'll let Melissa answer that. She has a great answer.
Well, he asked you, Richard. Go ahead and answer, and I'll add to your
Well,
answer.
I'll answer in short form because I want to hear what you have to say. But basically, yes, the prayer of intent to, quote, heal cancer creates a focus on cancer. It's the same reason. But denying cancer also creates a focus on cancer because you're denying something, sleeping it under the rug, and that makes it more powerful as well. You're more fearful denying cancer or trying not to have cancer than if you just accept cancer and then say, okay, so they call it cancer, but I'm going to call it a life opportunity.
Cancer itself, it's to some extent a deliberately engineered morphic field, and I'm speaking having spent almost 15 years in the pharmaceutical industry, creating and perpetuating morphic fields of disease so that we could sell more prescription drugs. And so when you're in resonance with a morphic field such as cancer, then the experiences that become available will correspond to the information that's inherent to that particular morphic field. There's a lot more flexibility, not by virtue of going into denial of the experience, but by breaking apart the resonance with the morphic field of cancer by playing with the symptoms, which are simply patterns of information. And so praying to heal cancer will continue to send a signal that will reinforce the morphic resonance and the outloop of the conditioning of cancer. Whereas if you are connecting to morphic fields of well-being and of wholeness and morphic fields of information that would correspond with the outcome that you're seeking to have reflected in your life, then you're more likely to experience a change. So intention can be incredibly useful, but you want to be very conscious of what you're intending to connect to, because an understanding of field flow leads you to realize that if you're intending to change a particular morphic field that you're in resonance with, that you don't want to be in resonance with, that intention to change is going to reinforce the resonance and you're going to actually amplify the experience.
Richard, a while back, I had a friend of mine who was interested in some healing. I think they called one of your offices in Seattle. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have a daughter there. Do you guys do, quote, remote work on people? And also, what are some of the things, and I don't mean this to limit it, but what are some of the things that take place at these seminars that you do? What kinds of healings and life shifting that takes place for these people who attend these seminars?
Anything and everything is up for grabs. We don't ever I don't certainly claim I can heal anything. The more knowledge I have, the more confused I am. The more seriously, the more I let go of the need to be powerful, the more grace can flow into the chalice of awareness that allows for something to shift. Melissa and I have seen conditions, diseases, patterns shift when we were not even aware that the person had them, and they were maybe in the back of the room and never interacted with us.
When you are doing your work, both of you, and let's say you open up a reality, and you're working with someone, and the floor turns to goo, or whatever that is for you. You have the same effect that you are implementing, to use a word, on someone else, or you are more grounded and fluid because you've been doing this so long. I guess the question I'm asking you is both, is because Melissa, you and Richard have been opening these doorways, to use a way of saying it, and playing in this arena, these alternate realities for so long. Do you feel that you were walking into different levels of mastery yourself. And I asked this question because, Richard, I watched a video on you yesterday, and if I'm not mistaken, you talked about Claire Prophet.
Yeah.
You talked about her husband driving off of a cliff.
Yes.
And are you both dabbling with these kinds of energies that your conviction level is changing, it's becoming more endowed, and therefore bigger doorways, greater opportunities opening up for you?
Well, I want to say that if your conviction level changes, you may be a convict in a prison of your own making.
Melissa?
I think that, I really hesitate to even answer a question around the word mastery because
Yeah, understood.
the moment you think that you've mastered something, conceptually can just be your ego thinking that you've mastered something. And true mastery doesn't really have a need to state, hey, I've mastered something. You've long since become whatever it is that you are seeking to master. With that being said, what the teachings of matrix energetics ultimately point to is the ability to expand the apertures of your awareness into the embodiment of multidimensionality and being able to navigate through multiple dimensions while maintaining both feet on the ground and a presence and an embodied awareness of what's happening in three-dimensional reality is an aspect of mastery. Being able to be present and occupy multiple universes, be present in the so-called here and now, and time travel back to the past or to probability states in the future. There's a form of mastery there. There's an art and science to being able to have a flexibility of consciousness beyond what appears to be happening in the so-called here and now. So there's many, many different ways to look at mastery, and what a field such as matrix energetics can open anyone and everyone to is the ability to realize we are so much more than what appears to be happening. And I'll take Bob Monroe's quote, we are so much more than our physical body. We are the universe experiencing itself through us, and being able to reconcile that concept, which is so much bigger than our little pea brains can conceptualize, is really what matrix energetics opens people up to experiencing. And what that then leads to is a reclamation of joy and a reclamation of realizing like we're all okay. And this game that we're playing down here in this so-called hologram isn't all that's happening. And being able to access other possibilities, other universes, other states of consciousness makes being here a much more enjoyable journey.
We make this all up together, right? I remember some years ago, the year 2000, I had the opportunity to go to India to spend time with an avatar who came to me in a dream and said, Keith, come to India. And I'm like, how will I get there? And he says, Keith, put all this aside. I'm going to take care of everything. So 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a person I never met. Hi, Keith. My name is Debbie. Hi, Debbie. Keith, I hear you want to go to India to see a holy man. Yes, this is true. Keith, I'm a flight attendant. I have some buddy passes that are about to expire for the year, and I would not like that to happen knowing you want to go to India to see a holy man. Can I give you a first class round trip ticket? So I jet off to India, spend 2 weeks there, and while on the ashram, you may have heard of Satya Sai Baba. While I'm on the ashram, there are like 35, 40,000 people there daily. And when this little man would walk out and begin to turn his hand and materialize something out of thin air, it's no kidding. I totally agree. We make this all up together because though he was the one, quote, performing the manifestation, when he starts turning his hand, you can feel the consciousness of the entire temple begin to elevate because of the excitement, right? But once he starts to bring this object back, the only way I can describe it is as if that everyone there went there together and brought it back together. And I've often asked myself, do these avatars, people with the abilities to manifest their lives in a holy instant, is it because, for example, let's say Sai Baba in this temple of 35 plus whatever thousand people, is it sort of like Star Wars, using the force around you? Is he using 35 plus thousands people, one pointed focus to bring this object back to this reality? So again, my point is, for me, when I was there, it was, as stated by Rich in some of the work I've seen him do, that we're all making this up together.
That would be my take on it, what you just said, Melissa.
I would say that yes, we are all making this up together. Yet, if you were to say, we create our own reality, I would have to invite people to consider that it's a little bit more complex than that. Because yes, we're all making this up together, but when together means we're not all on the same page, then you've got a bunch of interference patterns that are creating a bunch of out loops that are reflected in a space of non-unity consciousness. So yes, we're all making it up together, but we're not making it up together in a very cohesive way.
But something like that, where he's bringing an object in and everybody's focusing on it, yes, absolutely. That would be like a Death Star or something that's focused on manifestation. It would absolutely amplify that intent in that particular instance, which is why one of the great masterful beings that came through, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, Mother Mary, said, if you could take the energy of a Super Bowl and channel that energy into world peace, there would be world peace.
How are you guys' sleep experience? Mine are pretty far out there. I mean, once I lose bodily awareness, I'm pretty free. I have that ability here on this place on waking states of consciousness, but it's a little more easy for me in sleep states of consciousness. So I'm just curious to know, how is that for you when you are not so bodily aware? Both of you, if you could, if you would.
When I sleep, I'm gone.
You do too much work here.
I don't know. People tell us that they meet us, see us, we heal them. Quote, it's not really us. I don't think it's a simulacrum in the matrix that is that looks like us. But I mean, it's the morphic field itself. It's a program in a sense of consciousness. But I'm not aware of doing anything.
How about you, Melissa?
I have a slightly different answer. I do a lot of work out of body. In fact, last night I don't even think I slept more than 2 hours. And I'm pretty conscious of it. That's not to say that I can't turn off that aspect of my awareness and sleep for 8 hours and have a great night's sleep. But the lines between waking reality and sleeping reality kind of blur when you play in altered states as an everyday sort of way of being, and it's. It doesn't create a hindrance. It really depends on how you set it up. And one of the things that we teach our students is how to become more conscious of the times when we do go unconscious. So consider the sleeping state. It's not as hard to become conscious of it as people might think, and that is one way to open up into multidimensional awareness. Because when we all go to sleep, we're out of body journeying. We're traversing the multiple dimensions. We're not limited by the construct of physicality. What about you, Keith?
Oh, gee. I have experiences, everything from extraterrestrials to divine beings to angelic beings to higher forms of my own awareness. Just to give you a quickie, a few years ago, I remember in 8 hour sleep this took place. I remember coming to a state of consciousness. I had a job, I had a wife, 2.5 kids. I'd go to work 9 to 5, come home, eat supper, make love to the wife, whatever, watch a little bit late night TV, go to bed. I was doing this. I did this for 2 weeks. And you both know that when you're waking up from a night's sleep, that pull that you feel as you're coming back to the room, that you know that you're slowly starting to wake up. Well, after this 2 week life, I felt that pull and thinking, oh, wow, what an experience I just had, thinking I'm awake. So now I'm awake in my real life with my wife, my 9 to 5 job, and I did this for a week. And then after I felt the pull yet again to wake up in my actual bedroom. So I lived 3 weeks in 2 lives in 8 hours. So that was quite joyful and fun for me. And what was the greatest part about that experience was not the first 2 weeks or the second week. It was coming back to the actual bedroom and having the aha expansive moment that occurred, there was more bang in that than anything than the actual experience itself.
There's a TV series that was about that. It was only on for one season, but it was about a detective who experienced the death of his wife in one reality in a car crash and the death of his son in another reality in the car crash. And he didn't want to wake up in the dream because he wanted both of them. So he wanted it both ways. So his mind split into parallel universe. So every time he'd go to sleep, he'd wake up in a different reality, like what you're describing, experience time with his son, and then he'd go to a different reality and experience time with his wife. And he would solve crimes by the information he would get in both realities.
And of course, the show was so well done and so intelligent, it got canceled.
Of course.
Of course. Richard Bartlett and Melissa Joy Johnson, I want to say thank you for being on Center of Light Radio. Richard, it's been quite a few years. I was hunting you down, so to speak, trying to get you to be here, and finally that window happened. Is there something both of you would like to leave our listening audience with as you fly off the show here? And I know you guys are out of town. Is there anything you'd like our listening audience to know about where you are? What are you doing right now so those in your vicinity may come out and see you?
Well, I'm heading home tomorrow, and then I'm going to Phoenix the day after on Friday, I guess. So I'll be in Phoenix teaching something called Holo-Synchronous, or maybe it's MED. But anyway, it's material that came to me while I was with Elizabeth Clare Prophet as her doctor, and I believe it was communicated by angels. And it's about resetting physiology holographically to come out of the fight or flight response. It is not matrix energetics, quite different, but it is another form or perspective or window into consciousness expansion.
Melissa?
I will be heading to a sold-out AmJoy seminar, which is also not matrix energetics, but is about expanding consciousness, heart-centered awareness, and the power of commanding field flow. For all of our listeners, though, who are interested in the matrix energetics field and the co-teachings of Dr. Richard Bartlett and Melissa Joy, we will be teaching, as I mentioned earlier, in Denver, Colorado, August 20th through the 22nd. And then if there are any international listeners, we will be doing a whirlwind tour in Moscow, Russia, Italy, Switzerland, and Germany, mid-October to mid-November. For more information about upcoming Matrix Energetic seminars, our listeners can visit www.matrixenergetics.com. And for more information about MED seminars, our listeners can visit www.i-hrt.com. And for more information about AmJoy seminars, our listeners can visit www.amjoyheartfield.com. And I know I just sounded like a robot or like a meeting, but I was rattling that off at the top of my head, and I wanted to make sure I got the information out. So lots of ways to find us, but would really encourage everyone to come out and experience the real field of matrix energetics, the original field. It's available to everyone. It's child's play. It will delight you and dazzle you and amaze you. And it's really a very family-oriented experience. And we would like to welcome new people into the family. So please join us in Denver, Colorado. And more seminars will be hopefully posting very, very soon.
Richard, I used to live in Seattle. Well, in fact, I used to live in Bellevue. I used to play with a rock band there called Fifth Angel. Are you familiar with this group?
No, I got to Seattle in '96 to go to naturopathic school.
Yeah. Do you still play bass guitar, sir?
I don't. I actually compose on a MIDI keyboard, orchestral compositions, and various things.
If you guys ever pass through the Memphis, Tennessee region, let me know, because I would definitely like to come out and experience your seminar and get a little more involved. And I want to say thank you again for being here on Center of Light Radio. Much appreciated, and that door swings open to you both anytime.
Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Peace, love, and light to you both.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Everyone, Richard Bartlett and Melissa Joy Johnson here on Center of Light Radio. What a phenomenal show. Very, very informative. Can't wait to get back into the archives and listen to this with a little different ear set, I guess you can say. Remember, when you lay down at night, you have nothing better to do. You might as well do something. Breathe in and out like you want something expansive, something beyond what you've always known as yourself. And when you breathe from that perspective, you'll find yourself falling. Falling is a good thing. Falling or surrendering. And shortly, you will find yourself through the ceiling of thought. And then you find yourself connected to something greater than you've always known as yourself. That is a good thing. Peace, love, and light to you. I'll see you next Monday night. Ease into bliss.